teachers in the past have taught us, from the right sources in the right manner, and therefore the confusions abound. So therefore, as far as the experimental procedure is concerned, the Gita recommends a certain experimental procedure. And that experimental procedure is known as mantra yoga. So all of us hear of mantra, and we all think, what is this mantra business? What is this mantra? People keep chanting all kinds of mantra. It is very simple. It is basically sound vibration. It is an experimental procedure. It is a microscope to observe under magnification the soul. So just like nowadays you have operation through laser and all of these, sonic techniques. So these are all various procedures of invading the body, but through subtle means. So it is all subtle energy which is penetrating through the gross layers, but still revealing something within. Similarly, the soul is hidden deep within the gross layers of the body, and it's the subtlest element, and therefore to access it, we use the instrument of mantra, or a spiritually energized sound vibration, and that passes through all the different layers, accesses the soul, and then gradually reveals to us its glory and its power and its real swarupa or nature. Therefore, this mantra meditation is not just, something theoretical, and it is not just a religious chant, but it is a scientifically approved experimental procedure to access and observe the soul. That is the experiment. So now if you say, why only mantra, why not some other way? Then by that argument, you should question every experimental procedure which we have ever performed in our science labs, in our school and college. But we don't, because we know that the scientist who is proposing the hypothesis is also proposing the experimental procedure to prove the hypothesis. That is the right of every bona fide scientist. Therefore, if we want to check the presence of certain elements like calcium or magnesium, there is a certain procedure we do in lab, and certain colors we get, and that identifies, yes, the element calcium is present, this compound is present. You pass carbon dioxide through lime water, it turns milky, and that will prove that how, this particular experiment is showing the presence of carbon dioxide. And so you perform that experiment, you get the results, and therefore the hypothesis is proved. Now if you say, why should I pass carbon dioxide through lime water only? Why not to just water? You can do it, but that doesn't prove anything as far as the experiment is concerned. A hypothesis has certain parameters, and to prove that you need certain experiment. Therefore that mantra chanting, do not think that it is some age-old phenomena which has no practical relevance in my life, but it is a highly sophisticated, spiritually enlivened technological tool by which the presence of the soul is detected, and then its real power is brought out. And therefore it is called mantra yoga. So mantra yoga may appear to be a very spiritually imbued terminology, but if you just understand things dispassionately, analytically, then ultimately it boils down to the fact that yes, there is a hypothesis I have to prove, and this is the experiment which has been recommended, and these are the various things I will do to prove this hypothesis in this laboratory. So I can call it the Bhakti laboratory. You may call it the Boeing laboratory, or you may call it the Microsoft laboratory, you may call it any laboratory. So I can call this the Bhakti Yoga laboratory. But after all, laboratory is a place where certain experimental procedures are carried out and results are obtained. So therefore, This principle is very important. So now when we perform this mantra yoga, then gradually the presence of the soul is revealed. We actually see the difference from within, and we actually understand that yes, there is a person within who is sitting, and that state, when that fully manifests, is called self-realization, Atma Sakshatkar. And that is the result which we are looking for. And once you get the result, then your hypothesis is proved. So now even getting the results is not a one-day overnight procedure. Just as all of you doctors give medicines to the patients, but you allow certain recovery time. And then the medicine works, and over a period of time the recovery happens. Similarly also with this mantra yoga. Go ahead, go to the next one. So therefore, if you just see, if I have a tractor, the farmer wins a lottery, and then he gets a Mercedes Benz or a Cadillac or a limousine, and he uses that Mercedes Benz to plow the field now. Will that make any sense? It creates three complications. First is, he cannot enjoy, his whole efforts will be futile. Second is, his efforts will be a waste of time because he doesn't get the results. And third is, his whole experience in his attempt to plow the field is frustrating. So futility, time waste and frustration, these are the three results when something is used inappropriately. Therefore, human body has been given with a certain purpose of realizing the presence of the soul within. So therefore, for a certain situation, a certain vehicle is very important. So for plowing the field, tractor. So if that driver jumps from the tractor and jumps into a limousine, he can perform certain other functions. Like if a family has to go for a joy ride in Marine Drive, they don't go in a tractor. Whole family doesn't sit, and husband, wife, the children are just going in a. You may find in the villages that in the daytime they plow the fields, and evening they go out for some mela or something in a tractor, and they are looking happy. And people from the city laugh at that. Hey, just see, this is not the vehicle to go for a joy ride. So similarly, the human body has certain advantages, and the primary advantage of the human body is it can be utilized for self-realization, which no other body is suited for. So therefore, even for performing the experiment, certain preconditions are required. So the experiment cannot be performed in any situation. Right? If I have to check, the temperature or check the voltage, at least I need a closed room. I can't jump off the window and perform experiment in mid-air. That is not possible. Certain conditions are required. So similarly, for performing this experiment also, the first precondition is that it can only be performed in the environment or the building or the vehicle of human body. And within the precincts of the human body, then when this mantra yoga is adhered to, then gradually the experiment fructifies and provides results like that. So therefore, this is the second very important principle of why we should go beyond this body, is because we are not the body and we are originally the spirit soul, and that soul or Atman or Atma, Krishna says, Vasansi jiranani yatha vihaya navani grihanani naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jiranani anyani sanyati navani dehi. Just like a person gives up old dress and takes on new dresses, changes dresses. So like that, the soul also gives up old bodies and accepts new bodies. So that change takes place automatically. So therefore these are changing identities. Just like last week, Vaisakhi Prabhu was giving a good example. That he used to travel in Bangladesh. And therefore he would meet people. That Bangladesh came into existence in 1971. So the children whom he would be speaking to, they had Bangladesh passports. Their fathers had Pakistani passports, because someone born between 47 and 71 had Pakistan identity. And their grandfathers had Indian passport. So the same generation, grandfather, son and grandson, all three have different identities. Now if you say, what is your real identity? So it is nothing to do with the external, because the bodies keep changing. The real identity is the soul within. And that soul does not change even when the body goes through the change. And that is the basic premise of the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, because Arjuna is hesitating, saying that I will kill them. And Krishna is saying, no, you cannot kill them, because soul cannot be killed. But you have to perform your duty. And therefore in due course of time, these souls will get new bodies. You just perform your duty, your service, like that. So therefore in our own lives also, when we start leading lives based on the premise that I am the soul, I am not the body, then you realize that you cannot change the transformation of the body. You cannot change things which go on with connection with the body, and that creates a lot of peace, because you understand that as a soul, I cannot change. So one becomes peaceful in this understanding, and in the midst of all crises from all around, in spite of all different difficulties, one is able to find that state of peace. He just sees that, yes, this is all a hurricane going around, and I am in the eye of that hurricane, and nothing can touch me as an individual soul. So this is the platform for real peace, real satisfaction, real lasting relationships. Understanding that I am not the body, I am the soul. So if there are any questions for discussion, we can take for a few minutes. Yeah. The geography of the spiritual world, from the point of view of space-time, yeah, Vaikuntha. All of us have a certain limited understanding of space. And that's basically based on our premise that what I see with these eyes is reality. But just imagine that our visible range is certain wavelengths. Below that and above that, we can't see. And within those wavelengths, this particular eye is like a machine or a lens which has a certain magnification. And all of you who are into ophthalmology know that as you go on changing the magnification, or it's just common sense, as the magnification of the lens, the power changes, the visible object's shape, size and everything changes. Right? So that means this particular body or object, it is the critical part which is revealing how the world looks like to us. If I replace this with some other kind of magnifying lens of a different power, then the same sofa and the same microphone will look totally different. If I look at it through a microscope, this thing looks enlarged. Somebody I may appreciate as extremely beautiful, but if I look through the microscope, that looks horrendous, because everything is magnified. and you look through further super powerful microscope, you just see various, moving things. At the atomic level, everything is moving. So thank God we don't have that kind of vision. Otherwise, normal life would become impossible when we just see everything is just a mass of movement. So we have been given a certain kind of vision by which we can live in a certain level of illusion. When a frog looks at us, then the frog has a further limited range of visibility. So he just judges in terms of shadows. So when the frog looks at a human being, then he sees something else. Similarly, there may be beings higher than us who may look at us from a different perspective. So therefore the question is, I am seeing this room having certain colors, certain bulbs, certain shapes and sizes, but that perception of reality is because of the presence of these eyes. So that means, is the reality existing here or is it existing here? Because the same frog, if I can make him speak and say, what do you see? Well, a long shadow. And what do you see here? Well, a short shadow. And you bring a dog or some other animal which is, color blind. You show him different colors. He will just say black, white, black, white. He doesn't have any other conception of multicolors. So we have certain conception of certain range of colors. Maybe there is a further range beyond that. So therefore, if you look at it very analytically, we take reality for granted. We think this is the reality. But it is just a certain image which we are processing with the tools we have at our disposal. Therefore, this has always been a subject matter of deep interest for scientists who are working into the epistemology and ontology of how process of gathering information, because the first principle in science is observation, and that observation is dependent on the tools of the eyes and the ears, and everything is having only a very limited perception. So what exactly is reality is something very difficult to understand. So therefore, from that perspective, if suppose I say, how far is that door from this chair on which I am sitting? So you may say, okay, so many meters. But if I ask an ant who is seated here, how far is that door, from this table? And that ant will say, a few generations. Because by the time I reach here, I may die. And then maybe my son will go further ahead and his son may be able to reach. So he may say 2-3 generations away. That is his perspective. And that's not wrong, because he is speaking from a limited understanding. So therefore, when we say how far is Vaikuntha, so therefore, to appreciate and understand, we have to know that we have to come out of our limited paradigm. We have to come out of our box. And we have to come out of our colossal egocentric thinking that we are the center of the universe, and all our thinking processes are real and true. No, that's not a fact. So therefore, as students of Bhagavatam, we understand that all of these dimensions are there, but these dimensions are in such a way that sometimes it becomes mind-boggling to understand what is where. So therefore, the Bhagavatam is giving all the details, that there is Goloka, there is Vaikuntha planets, and the material world is like a small speck in one corner. and we have to ultimately come out of this and go to the Vaikuntha planets. And it can all be done in one moment, because everything is based on the speed of the mind. So therefore physical distance is not so important, but what is important is the consciousness, like that. Therefore the potency of Vaikuntha cannot be appreciated in terms of physical miles. It's not a concept of just physical distance, like that.
Talking of passing certain aspects of life through the tool of Bhagavad Gita, like I'm seeing something attractive, you pass it through the tool. You feel that that is attraction, it is material, this is not the soul, fine, we leave it at that. When I am treating a patient, there are times I am faced with problems which do not have solutions, as in material solutions. So till what time am I supposed to go on trying and then leave it that, okay fine, this is material, this is suffering, this is worldly suffering, and leave it at that?
All of us try our best according to all the knowledge and information and technology we have at our disposal. But after we try our level best, so now the question is, how do we know what is my best? So with all the sincerity at your disposal, you make certain attempts. And then for example, I have to go out somewhere for a very important meeting. And then I'm in time, I'm ready, this, that, I'm sitting in my vehicle and I'm on the right road, and then suddenly there is a traffic jam. Now what can I do? Is it within my control? Beyond my control? Okay, I take turns and go here, there, different places, go to another spot, there is a bigger jam. Then I realize that road was better than this. Then I go somewhere else. Then ultimately I realize that I cannot make it. And all of us have experience of these kind of days, where we try our best and something or the other happens and we cannot make it. Things are beyond our control. Just like a boy and a girl, they had a fight. And the boy said, I'm breaking off your relationship with you. And then he left. And as this was in New York, and they were in a big skyscraper building. And as he came out of the, lobby from below, the same time the girl had jumped from top. And when she jumped from that 75th floor, she fell straight on that boy who was walking out of the door at that time. And the boy died and the girl survived. Now this was not planned, but this just happened. Right? And therefore many times we do certain things and certain other experiences happen, and many times we take credit thinking that, okay, maybe it is because of me that this happened. And other times we don't do anything, but still things happen and we are bewildered what's going on. So therefore the premise of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is telling Arjuna, is you are not the doer. You just put your efforts, everything else is working under higher powers. Like for example, a small child is driving a car. So when he's driving a car, he's sitting on father's lap and he can't even touch his feet to the accelerator. He doesn't have the power to run the steering wheel. Father is doing it. He just kept his fingers on that. But father is moving the vehicle around and he's thinking, just see how nicely I'm driving. So father just removes the hand and then he will know really what is going on. So like that, we have been given certain powers, but we should know that those powers have been endowed upon us. And we should try our level best. We should act like trustees. So therefore as trustees, we do not own those powers, but we are just taking care of those for a certain period to perform our duties, try our best. If nothing happens, leave the rest. Just like a cashier in a bank, he gets a lot of deposits, lakhs of rupees worth of deposits. He doesn't go home and tell the wife, we have become lakpati today. Why? 10 lakhs came in. But came in and went where? Into the bank account, not into his pocket. Or when you try to withdraw money from the bank, the cashier won't tell you, hey, don't withdraw 2 lakhs. मैं कंगाल हो जाऊंगा. That is not your money, it is my money. What is your problem? Say, no, please don't do it. No, he'll say, okay, take how much you want, 2 lakh, take it. 5 lakh, take it, no problem. It is after all your money only. So like that, Krishna is providing all the energies, all the power, and we are just acting on his behalf. And when we are acting in that capacity, we are not in anxiety. So therefore Krishna told Arjuna, you try your best. You fight. Bhishma had taken a vow that I will kill all the Pandavas with 5 arrows. Krishna was very agitated. He went running to Arjuna. Arjuna was sleeping peacefully. And he was, lying on the bed, and Arjuna, when he would sleep, he would so Krishna conscious, while inhaling and exhaling he would chant Krishna's name. Krishna, Krishna. While sleeping he would chant Krishna's name. And we are while chanting Krishna's name, we fall asleep. Opposite. So Arjuna was so Krishna conscious. And then Krishna woke him up. Get up, Arjuna, how can you sleep? He said, what happened? Bhishma has taken vow, he's going to kill all of you. Arjuna said, Krishna, you don't think I heard the Gita? Just now I heard the Gita, and I can quote the verse number also. And you said that Kaunteya pradayanihi name bhakta pranashyati, that I will protect my devotees. So protecting devotees is your department, not mine. So therefore, I am doing my best on the battlefield, but ultimately to protect me from Bhishma is your job. Okay? Hare Krishna. And Arjuna went to sleep. And Krishna was in full anxiety planning what I should do the next day to make sure that this doesn't happen. So therefore, the whole message of Gita is try your best, but leave the rest to the Supreme and understand that yes, He is in control of things. Like that. Otherwise, as far as our own limited purview is concerned, we have very limited control. And that is going to be the third part of our discussion. Limited control means no control. C is control. That we'll discuss in the next aspect. So I have to go to the temple for the Sunday feast. I've been asked to give the Sunday feast class also, so I'm in a hurry. I'll take your leave at this very moment. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.
And this program was very well appreciated. This visit was very well appreciated by the participants of the Sanjeevani program who visited places around Mathura. So inspired by that, he has planned a 2-day spiritual retreat in a local outing, most probably the KT Resort. There is a form attached with your feedback form in your folders. We would request all the assembled doctors to please fill in these feedbacks and let us know as soon as possible of your availability for this retreat. It is planned on the 24th and 25th, the 23rd and 24th, as per the convenience of the majority. Now, I would request our chief guest, Mr. Arun Kshirsagar, to please address us.
Good morning. I am Arun Kshirsagar. I am from the University of Mumbai, from an institute called Garware Institute of Career Education and Development. I am very happy to be here today because after a very, very busy week, you come to a nice place like Mira Road and sit down quietly in this air-conditioned room amongst people who are very peaceful and want to spend time together. That how this peace which we got in the last 1 hour can be continued for rest of the week. The importance of peace has been brought out in our scriptures and very well presented today by Swami Gaurang Prabhu. It's very important that peace remains with us, or we are in peace, because it's only in peace that we can think. If we are very emotional and not peaceful, then we cannot think. If we cannot think, nothing can get into our mind. We cannot give proper response. We cannot manage ourselves. We cannot communicate with others. We cannot understand others. We cannot motivate others. In the current scenario in India, the importance of peace, the importance of our presence of mind, the importance of being ready for doing our job is becoming more and more important. There is one single reason for this, and that is competition. There is only a piece of work which has to be done, and whoever does first will get the next piece of work to be done. The Prabhu gave you an example of Einstein. The same Einstein said that today, whenever he was, to stand in the same place you have to run. So that's competition. This competition necessitates that we must have knowledge, we must have skills, we should also have the aptitude, and all this necessitates very intelligent and hard work. You would see right from the kitchen up to the work how things have transformed. Earlier we used to make only 4 or 5 preparations. Today very authentic preparations such as pizza and pasta also has to be made in the house. So the work of everyone is becoming complex, difficult, and requires more and more skill, competence, thinking, all aimed at satisfying somebody else. This is called service in business. Now, all this necessitates a lot of thinking on a day-to-day basis, a lot of development of knowledge. You have to go deeper and deeper into the knowledge, acquire more and more knowledge to face the daily situations. Situations of business, situations of health, situations of patients. The Swamiji has very well brought out, and I think I also in my introduction had exposure that this hospital takes care of the spiritual aspect of patient. I am definitely contribute to the view that spiritual healing is as important as the medical healing. It's very, very important that we must look at the other person like a human being. We had Bapuji, and time and again he has brought out the importance of human being, how it should be preserved, how we should respect each other, and in what way we can help each other. Be it any religion, all religions cater and contribute to the same, at least basic aspect, that kindness to the humanity, prosperity of the humanity. Our country was the richest and most prosperous country from 0 to 1000 BC. It was the richest country in the world. Exports of India were maximum in the world during this era, more than China also. However, whatever happened between 1000 till 2000, we went behind. Now the time is coming when we have an opportunity of going forward. In some areas, we are already topping, progressing at faster rate than some other countries. Each one of us has to commit ourselves to our job or whatever we are aspiring and do our best so that eventually, after a couple of years, we come to the top. There are many positive points in the physical world which makes us confident that we will certainly, if not the best, but the second best in the world in terms of business, in terms of prosperity, in terms of economy. Why I'm talking of economy? Because everybody must get food, everybody must get a good place to live, and that necessitates that the economy must progress. The population in India is growing at a very, very fast rate. There are a lot of people who think that this is a negative point. No, this is a very positive point. In the year 2021, India will have the largest number of workforce. Workforce means those people who will be in the age group 20 to 25 to take a job somewhere. We will be highest front aptitudes, attitudes, skills, etc. to do more and more type of jobs more effectively, more efficiently for us and also for the rest of the world. The rest of the world is very important for us. It's more important because that's our customer from where money will come by giving our service. So what do we do with this manpower? The manpower strengthening is a very important issue today. It's being talked of in multinational companies, it's being talked in our large companies today, and also in the universities. The government is thinking very hard, but it is also important that the NGOs like this hospital also imbibes education, and some steps which are being taken like this are very important. Education is very important not only for increasing your knowledge and for your skills, but also your behavior. I come from Mumbai University. The university is celebrating 150th year of its incorporation, and we also believe in some of the scriptures and how this can be effective to us. The university monogram, that is the logo, it says Shila Vritta Phala Vidya. That means only that education is good which brings into change in your behavior. So it's very important that we all follow the principles which has been given in our scriptures. Although we are living in a modern world where English is there and we are serving the rest of the nation, other nations. So externally it all might be Europeanized, Americanized. It's also important that we ourselves are tuned to some of these important principles which have been given in our scriptures and improve ourselves, improve our fellow beings and improve our nation and thereby become more and more prosperous. I thank the management of Bhaktivedanta Hospital for calling me over here and getting a chance to be with you. If anyone has some questions about the university or about present, I don't mind answering to the extent of my capability. Thank you.